Hi, I'm Sadia. Welcome to the Census Counts training on SMS 101. This training will leave you prepared and equipped to create an effective texting strategy to reach hard-to-count communities. Together, we'll dive into the brief description of what SMS is, and specifically the two different types of texting, peer-to-peer and mass texting. We'll show you a few of the key providers and provide a breakdown of their costs. Then we'll wrap it up with some final tips. Ready? Awesome, let's get to it. So, SMS is formally known as Short Messaging Service and informally as texting. We all do it, we all know it. The question is, why and how does it work for your program? The overriding reason is that texting, more than any other tool, almost guarantees that your message will be heard. A majority of Americans view texting as their primary means of communication. And, as you can see, over 95% of text messages are opened and read. And over 90% of those texts are opened in the first 3 minutes alone. Texts receive responses more than twice the rate of calls and 36 times the rate of emails. Not to hit you over the head here, but there's more. Over 90% of Americans own a cell phone, and texting isn't just a generational thing. Obviously, younger people use it more, but as you can see, boomers, Gen X, Y, and Z all use texting at high rates. And lastly, people of color are more likely to text on average than their white counterparts. Okay, I hope you're convinced on the why. Now it's time to dig into the how. How can you launch a texting program? Well, first you will need to decide which type of texting program you want. The first one we'll talk about is peer-to-peer. Put simply, peer-to-peer messaging allows organizations to send out thousands of templated messages to a list of their choosing in order to have real one-on-one conversations where the program then receives and records any data. What makes peer-to-peer special is the ability to reach high numbers of people and have a personalized conversation once they reply. The way that works is that peer-to-peer messaging tool that you're using will allow you to create a targeted list, a specific script to send to that list, and standardized response messages. The staffer or volunteer can then just click send, send, and send to however many people are on that list. Oftentimes, it's around 1,000 people or so, which only takes a few minutes to send. Then, this is where the personalization comes in. People on the list will begin responding, and the staffer or volunteer will choose a templated response or type a unique message, and the conversation will commence. To rewind a second though, it's important to emphasize just how important the first message is. The first message will be written by the admin and will be sent out to thousands of people in a span of a few minutes. So the first message really has to hook in the audience. We need to make it personal, casual, engaging, but also prompt them to respond. It also shouldn't be longer than a tweet, and you should be working toward your hard ask at the end. Here's an example. I'll give you a few seconds to look. Done? So, which one is better? Which one is more engaging? Which has the more direct and hard ask? Obviously the one with emojis, right? You can never go wrong with emojis. All right, let's talk about how to respond. The admin will upload several standard responses, one for yes, one for no, and maybe one for I'm not sure. Once a staffer or volunteer gets a message back, they'll just choose the most relevant option or personalize one. Okay, last piece on the peer-to-peer. Some final tips to remember are, create that intriguing hook for your first message. I didn't mention this, but sometimes you want to just continue strengthening the relationship, so you might want to send out valuable update text, not just ask text. Another piece is to be sure that the staffer or volunteer records all data in the system. The more data we get, the more impact we can show now, and the better our texting program will be in the future. And lastly, just remember that these are real humans. The beauty of texting is that we can have genuine conversations with thousands of people. So remember that with each text you send. All right, time to switch gears to mass or broadcast texting. As the title indicates, mass texting is for, well, the masses. Through mass texting, you can reach thousands of people at the click of a button. One key difference here is that you don't have the ability to provide personalized responses like peer-to-peer. Another key difference for mass texting is that the only way you can send out a mass text is if the people have opted in. That's why you often see people, programs, and corporations telling people to text, I'm in, to 1234. You can get people to opt in by asking, but sometimes people need incentives like through a sweepstake or making people want to join by offering them access to something cool, or making it so they're the first to know something. Another few tips on this front are to make sure to text during regular business hours and not to overdo it. The more you text, the less important it seems, or the more annoying it might become. One quick example of this goes way back to when BlackBerries ruled the world. This was in 2008 when the Obama campaign used the exciting VP announcement as a means to grow their list. People texted the campaign to be the first to know, and as you can see, the campaign sent a short text that asked people to tune in to the official announcement. One final note before we switch to the actual providers for peer-to-peer and mass is the legality of all of this. As mentioned, the current laws for mass texting make it necessary for you to get people to opt in. For peer-to-peer, however, to put it crudely, we are allowed to send messages by the thousands because peer-to-peer tools require individuals to send each one manually, and the FCC doesn't regulate this. So while laws might change in the future, this is where it currently stands. So at this point, you might be wondering, how do I go about sending these messages? Do you have to create your own tool to make it happen? The answer is quite simply no. There are many tools out there that can help advance your goals, and we found a few that you can start with. We aren't endorsing these tools as much as highlighting them as they are the more well-known tools. 3 of the biggest providers are Hustle, Relay, and Simple Texting. Hustle and Relay are peer-to-peer, while Simple Texting is mass. Here, you can find a few examples of what it looks like visually. With the Hustle example, you can see how the conversation unfolds. With the Relay screenshot, you can see how the staffer or volunteer is able to choose a templated reply with the click of a button. And, as mentioned toward the beginning of this training, SMS really works. Here's a Hustle case study that shows how the Doug Jones campaign was able to reach hundreds of thousands of people and have actual conversations with tens of thousands of people. The same goes for Relay. Countless programs have used the tool to reach and communicate with hundreds of thousands of people. Now, when it comes down to costs, you'll need to call to get an exact quote. But having said that, you can see a decent overview here. Each platform will have discounts at bulk or for longer contracts. Hustle charges by contact, whereas Relay charges by outgoing message. Hustle and Relay will be a bit on the pricier side, so there are other lower cost options. Spoke, which is owned by MoveOn, is much cheaper, as is Groundbase, which is a more pay-as-you-go type of plan. Mass texting, on the other hand, is much cheaper, but of course, there are noted limitations. Simple Texting and other mass texting platforms usually cost around 0.015 cents per message, and there are often discounts for nonprofits and for contracts. Like Hustle and Relay, Simple Texting has a demonstrated track record of reaching their list, increasing the response rate, and hitting the goals of the organizations that use them. Community Connect Labs also offers census-specific tech tools based around SMS. Hard-to-count communities are more likely to have questions about the census or need help filling it out. Community Connect has also developed SMS tools for governments and nonprofits to use to organize target communities. The Help Desk and Misinformation programs provide support for census questions and issues, and their Community Motivator delivers automated text messages to remind people to fill out the census. These tools are especially useful in light of a study released by the Census Bureau this year, which found that texting is the preferred follow-up method for information about the census. Here's an example of how their Help Desk program works. People can send a text message to a number or mobile app when they need help with the census, and the program sends back an automated message or refers them to the nearest assistance center. As you can see in the example, the program quickly responds to the user's questions and has interactive capabilities to continue the conversation. Okay, before I leave you, I did want to wrap it up with a few final best practices and tips. The first thing I wanted to talk about was how to integrate the texting operation into your overall workflow as an organization. Every organization is different. Some organizations have field running the program. Many have digital, and some are hybrids. The point is, whichever department is responsible for the texting program should take the lead in creating the list, writing the scripts, sending the text, and making and tracking the metrics. Be sure to stay in communication with all the other departments that the program will impact. And lastly, know that the more people you have that can text, the more people you can reach. So instead of just having a staffer in the digital department be paid to text, have this person or a few people recruit volunteers to send the messages. Volunteers love to text because it's easy and effective. And finally, here are a few final do's and don'ts. Specifically for peer-to-peer, remember to personalize the conversation, include a hard ask, and reply quickly. For both mass and peer-to-peer, remember to keep messages concise, add value to the receiver's lives, and as an organization, reach out to multiple vendors to get a specific quote. For both mass and peer-to-peer, don't write a text like an email. Don't text too late or too often, and for mass texting, make sure that they opt in. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you feel more prepared to launch your texting program. For more information around digital organizing, RSVP for the Census Counts Digital Organizing Summit. Happy texting!